All right, buckle up, because we're about to take a deep dive into something really, really special.
Oh, sounds intriguing. What have you got for us this time?
This time around, we're diving into Kristin Hannah's The Women.
The women, huh? I'm intrigued. What's the angle?
It's set during the Vietnam War, but before you go thinking, oh, not another war story, I promise you this one hits differently.
Okay, you've piqued my curiosity. What makes this one stand out? What makes it different?
It's like you think you know a story, and then Hannah pulls back the curtain, and suddenly you're seeing the Vietnam War with fresh eyes. It's not just about battles and strategy, though there's certainly some of that too. It's about resilience. It's about unsung heroes. It's about those overlooked perspectives, the ones that don't always make it into the history books.
Precisely. And that's what I find so captivating about Hannah's approach to this particular story. She unveils a side of this well-known historical event, the Vietnam War, that we rarely get to see. It's the same war, but through a completely different lens.
And what's fascinating is how Hannah, who wasn't always a historical fiction author, arrived at this point in her career.
It's true, her journey is rather interesting.
Yeah, so walk me through that. I've heard she took a pretty winding path to becoming a best-selling author.
Oh, it wasn't a straight shot, that's for sure.
Really?
Believe it or not, Hannah was actually practicing law before she ever wrote a novel.
Really? Now that's a plot twist I didn't see coming. What prompted such a dramatic shift?
So there's this poignant detail. Hannah's own mother, while battling cancer, actually encouraged her to pursue writing a novel.
Wow.
Yeah.
Talk about powerful inspiration.
You can say that again?
So did she just jump right into the world of historical fiction at that point?
Not exactly.
Right.
Her early work, starting with A Handful of Heaven back in 1991, was primarily rooted in the romance genre.
Interesting. So how do we get from romance novels to the depths of a story like The Women?
It was a gradual evolution. As she honed her craft, you see her work taking on more complex themes, venturing into these historical narratives. Novels like Winter Garden, The Nightingale, and The Great Alone, they all explore these deeper, often darker aspects of human experience.
And that's something I really connect with in her writing. I mean, those books, they linger in your mind long after you finish them.
Yes.
There's this depth of emotion, this focus on the strength that people find within themselves. It just feels so real.
Precisely. And a lot of that stems from Hannah's own life. Loss, love, these aren't just abstract concepts for her. They're woven into the very fabric of her stories. It's part of what gives them that raw, relatable quality.
And that's what makes The Women so compelling. Even if you, the listener, have never experienced war firsthand, it's those universal human emotions, that yearning for connection, for understanding that just shines through.
Absolutely. It's easy to think about the Vietnam War in terms of dates, battles, and political figures. But what Hannah does so brilliantly is center the narrative on the individual human experience. And not just any individuals, women. Nurses facing a war that was, let's be honest, very often defined by men's experiences.
It's like she's saying, hold on, there's another side to this story that needs to be told. And it's not just about being a woman in the war, it's about being a nurse in the war. What unique challenges did they face that their male counterparts may not have?
Yeah.
You're right, the perspective of nurses in the Vietnam War, especially the challenges unique to them, isn't something you come across every day.
Exactly. And The Women really dives deep into the experiences of these nurses, their struggles, and frankly, the appalling way society treated them when they returned home.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking, honestly. These women served their country, witnessed unimaginable trauma, and then came home to a world that didn't know how to handle them, let alone honor their sacrifices.
It really highlights how we often fail to support those who serve, especially when they don't fit that traditional mold of what we think a hero should look like.
It's so true.
And this is where Hannah's protagonist, Frankie McGrath, enters the picture.
Frankie.
Yeah, she's not just any nurse. She comes from a wealthy family, defying expectations right from the get-go by choosing to serve.
So right from the start, she's challenging these assumptions. She could easily stay in her comfortable world, but she felt this pull, this need to be a part of something bigger than herself.
Absolutely.
And that decision alone speaks volumes about her character.
For sure.
That internal conflict, that sense of being pulled in different directions, it's something that really resonates with me. I can only imagine how challenging it must have been for Hannah to capture that complexity, to balance the historical reality with the emotional truth of these women's lives.
It's a delicate dance, no doubt about it. Hannah herself has talked about the responsibility she felt in telling this story authentically. It wasn't just about crafting this, compelling narrative. It was about honoring the truth of what these women endured.
So how did she find that balance? What did her research process look like?
Oh, she went above and beyond to get it right. We're talking memoirs from nurses who were actually there in Vietnam,
Wow.
interviews with veterans, deep dives into the psychological impact of war. She wasn't afraid to go to those difficult places in her research.
I'd imagine her background as a lawyer probably came in handy there. That meticulous research, the attention to detail, it all shines through in her writing.
Absolutely. You can feel the authenticity on every page. But it wasn't just about getting the facts straight, It was about capturing that emotional core of what these women experienced, both during and after the war.
Which is such a difficult thing to do. Well, to portray the brutality of war alongside these women's inner lives, their hopes, their dreams. It takes a skilled hand to weave those threads together seamlessly.
It does, and Hannah does it masterfully. One of the things that struck me most about the women is how she embeds these universal themes into the narrative, things we can all relate to regardless of our personal experience.
Oh, absolutely. Like
resilience, for example, is a huge takeaway from this book.
And it's not just about surviving the battlefield, is it?
No.
It's about coming home, carrying those invisible wounds, and facing a world that doesn't understand what they went through. That journey back, the struggle to reconcile who you were with who you've become, that's something I think a lot of us can connect with on some level.
Absolutely. Frankie's journey in particular, her struggle to reconcile the woman she was before the war with the person she's become as a result of her experiences, that really resonated with me. It's something we all grapple with in different ways, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
That need to integrate the different parts of ourselves, the things we've seen, the things we've done, into a cohesive whole.
It makes you think about how we define identity, not just for ourselves, but for others as well. Being a woman, a nurse, a veteran.
Yeah.
These labels, often imposed by society, can feel both empowering and limiting at the same time.
For sure.
It's a lot to process.
It is. And this ties into the broader women's equality movement that was happening during this time period.
Right.
Frankie's story becomes this sort of microcosm of the challenges women faced on a larger scale, Fighting to have their voices heard, their contributions recognized, their experiences validated.
It's a powerful reminder that history isn't just dates and battles. It's about the people who lived through those events, the stories they carry with them, the ways those experiences shaped who they became.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes those stories, they're hidden, tucked away in the margins of the larger narrative.
Exactly. And that's what I find so compelling about Hannah's work. It's her commitment to giving a voice to the overlooked, to shining a light on those untold stories.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about retelling history, it's about deepening our understanding of it.
It makes you realize just how much we miss when we only focus on one perspective, one version of events.
Absolutely.
Take her novel, The Nightingale, for example. It's set during World War II, but again, it's not your typical war story.
No.
It centers on two sisters in France.
Right.
Their resilience, their quiet acts of courage in the face of unimaginable hardship.
It's a reminder that heroism doesn't always look like what we expect it to.
Sometimes it's those quiet acts of courage, the ones that don't always make it into the history books, that can be the most impactful. They really challenge our assumptions about what heroism looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. And they broaden our understanding of just how resilient people can be in the face of extraordinary circumstances.
And they remind us that there's always more to the story than meets the eye.
Exactly. I always get this feeling like I need to know more, It's that desire to uncover those hidden corners of history, to see the world from a new perspective. And Hannah doesn't hand us all the answers, does she?
No, not at all.
That's part of what makes her work so rewarding. She sparks that curiosity in us, encourages us to keep digging.
She does. The women really stayed with me, left me feeling incredibly moved by the strength of those nurses facing those unimaginable situations. But it also sparked this sense of responsibility,
To listen, to learn from the past.
Yeah, and to make sure those stories are heard, that those sacrifices aren't forgotten.
Absolutely, to honor those experiences.
It makes you want to seek out those untold stories, those voices that haven't been given their due.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Hannah's shining a light on this hidden corner of history, and suddenly you realize just how much more there is to discover.
It's true, and that's the beauty of a deep dive like this, isn't it?
Totally.
It's not just about one book, one author, or even one historical event.
Right.
It's about opening a door to a whole world of untold stories just waiting to be explored.
So true. It really makes you think, What other untold stories are out there? What voices haven't we heard? What perspectives are we missing?
That's the question we should all be asking ourselves as we engage with history, with literature, with the world around us, you know?
Absolutely. What historical events, what individuals, what perspectives have you always felt drawn to but maybe haven't had the chance to explore fully?
It's a challenge for all of us. And on that note, I think we've done a pretty good job of digging into this one today.
Yeah, I think so too. And if you're looking for a book that will stay with you long after you've turned that last page, The Women by Kristin Hannah is it. It's a testament to the power of storytelling, the importance of seeking out diverse perspectives, and, of course, the enduring strength of the human spirit, even in the face of unimaginable hardship.
Beautifully said. I couldn't agree more.
So as you go about your day, remember those untold stories, those voices waiting to be heard. You never know what incredible insights you might uncover.